My name is Leslie, and this is my story. I was born and raised in Oregon, and I grew up for 6 years in Monmouth, Oregon, which is a small farm town in the middle of nowhere. And I went to a private Christian school where I knew everybody and everybody knew me, and I had God in my life all the time. It was so exciting, and I was so involved in my church. And I just grew up and had the best childhood I think I could have had ever. I lived on a farm. We didn't raise anything, but I had chickens one time, and that was fun. We had a huge pond and a rope swing and just like this beautiful property that was amazing that I got to grow up on with my 3 brothers and my parents and 2 dogs. And it was all really, it was perfect. My parents both were stay home at that point because they had retired and had someone that was taking care of their business, so they were both home. So I just kind of had the most amazing experience, and I was so privileged with everything that I had. And then when I got into 3rd grade, the recession hit, and it took away about 50% of my parents' clients in their business. And so the life that I was living and dreamland that I was living was completely shattered. And by 5th grade, my family moved to Portland, Oregon, or 10 minutes outside of Portland, Oregon, for my parents to be closer to their business and place of work. And at that point, we didn't have enough money for me to go to private school anymore, so I was transitioned into public school and got pushed into a completely different frame of life than anything that I had ever dealt with before. I was with 5th grade girls who were dressing like they were 20, and I had no idea how to do that. I was wearing jeans and t-shirts, and I was a farm girl, and I was from Monmouth, and nobody even knew where that was. It just became very different. So from 5th to 6th grade, I went to public school, and then 7th grade, I went to public school, and it was just a really, really hard time in my life where I had a lot of realizations. One, I felt like I wasn't as smart as everybody else because it became very apparent that I learned differently. And I struggled really, really hard and got put in different classes than my friends, and everyone thought that I was dumb and stupid, and it kind of came like this running joke, oh, Leslie's the dumb one, Leslie's the stupid one, and Leslie's the weird one, she's different, she talks about God, what's wrong with her, she's so different. I was very separated from everyone is what it felt like, and to make friends I had to compromise who I really was and what I really believed about myself, and I had to keep my mouth shut about my favorite person, who was God. And I was still also at this point where I wasn't seeing either of my parents very much, and it was all happening alone. And I remember in 7th grade, it was the first time that I ever freaked out about me. I have had my first freak out, and I was like, Mom, I hate myself. She says, what do you mean you hate yourself? It's I hate myself. I just don't want to be me. I want to be somebody else. Nobody likes me. I don't like myself. I'm not interesting enough. I'm not cool enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not anything enough to mean anything to anybody else. And she was like, Leslie, that's crazy. That's crazy. And we had this whole talk about it. And when we had the talk about it, she was trying to make me feel better, but I almost thought that she was trying to put to rest what I was saying. So I just didn't talk about it again. And every time that I felt something, I just put it down in the bottom of my stomach, in the bottom of the trash can that I kept throwing all the stuff that I thought about myself in. And I just began to keep perpetuating these lies that people had told me. Oh, Leslie, you look like a boy because you have muscles. Leslie, you're stupid. Leslie, you're this, you're this, you're this. And I just believed everything that everyone said about me. I just went with it. And it created me into this crazy little ball of energy of a crazy person trying to hide the fact that I was hurting so bad on the inside, and I had no idea how to not feel that pain. So I went to school every day, and I was crazy, and I was excited, and I was all over the place, and I was jumping all over the walls, and everyone was like, crazy, Leslie's the crazy fun one, she's insane. And I liked that reputation better than being the stupid girl. And everyone still thought that, but at least when they looked at the outside of me and they looked at that, I was crazy and I was fun and I was exciting. I wasn't what was really going on. So by the end of my freshman year of high school, I was diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia, which made a lot of sense with how hard school had been for me, in that just was like a crazy realization that I had about how much that affected my life. But also when I was diagnosed with those things, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And that was something that I never expected, and that the happy little 8-year-old that I was living on a farm would have never seen coming. I would have never seen the person that I was then. I would have never expected her to be who I was, and I was so ashamed of it. I was so embarrassed, and I felt so awful about myself that I just told my mom. I was like, Mom, we can't tell anyone. Nobody can know. I was like, don't tell Dad. Don't tell my brothers. Don't tell anyone. So I lived this year, sophomore year, of still pretending to be this person that I wasn't. I just lied to everyone about everything. I would say, oh yeah, I did my homework. Didn't do my homework. Oh yeah, Mom, don't worry about my grades. I have A's and everything. That was a lie. I didn't tell anyone that I had learning disabilities. I didn't tell anyone that I was sad. I kind of actually just like got more excited all the time. And I became a really exciting person, and everybody really wanted to like be around me, and that was really different. But deep down, it was just getting harder and harder and harder, and I was just more and more upset. And I started just hating myself, and not even just hating the person that I was on the inside, but hating the person that I was on the outside. And I could just control nothing in my life. I couldn't control where my parents were. I couldn't control, it felt like anything in my life. So I started controlling the food, because I knew that I could do that. And I knew that I could control what I put in my body, and I knew that to an extent I could control how I looked. And at this point, I hated the face that I saw in the mirror so much, and I hated my body so much, and I wasn't ever enough for anyone. So I just told myself that I didn't deserve to eat, and I didn't deserve to enjoy that aspect of life. I didn't deserve the food, and so I stopped. And I stopped eating, and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't really think it was a big deal. I just knew that I could control that, and I knew that in the crazy world where everything around me was moving so fast, that was one of the only things that I could latch on to and hold on to. And it felt like it made me better. I felt superior to people. I was like, I don't have to eat, and I can still dance today. I don't have to eat, and I can still go to school, and I can still be fun and energetic and stay up all night and do everything that you can. But I don't need that to be better than. And it was just really dark, and that wasn't true, and it was never true. And it just kept getting worse. And my sophomore year, I just told myself that it was all okay, and I kept that facade up so good. And I was getting so good at it. I was like an actress on TV screen every single time that I walked into school. And nobody knew. Not my teachers, not my parents, not my friends, nobody. But by junior year, it became so hard to hold that perfection. It became so hard to pretend that I was okay and to pretend that I wasn't struggling. And it started coming in outbursts of me doing crazy things, and all the time. I started hanging out with people that weren't good for me, that continued to tell me really bad things about myself, but on top of that, told me that I was really fun. And so we'd go do fun things and crazy things, and I stopped telling my parents where I was, and I'd just like go places at 3 in the morning and just get away and just do everything I could to numb my pain, no matter what it was. I did things that I was horrified of, like jumping off of, I'm horrified of heights, and I used to just go to these places and hold myself off the edge of these heights and look down and just see how it made me feel, because I couldn't feel anything anymore. And there was no part of me that felt something. I was empty. And I just felt empty all the time. And I tried to fill that emptiness with everything but what I actually needed to fill it with. Constantly putting on masks to make everybody else around me happy. This is the mask that I wear when I'm with my family. This is the mask that I wear when I'm with my little brother. This is the mask that I wear when I'm with a boy that I like. This is the mask that I wear when I'm around girls. This is the mask that I wear when I'm in a social setting. In class, there was a different person, and I lived these different people every single day. And I'd walk into my closet, and I'd have clothes for 7 different people, and I didn't know who any of them were. And every day I'd pick, and I'd be like, this is who I will be today. And it was so toxic and so unrealistic to who I was and so numbing. And I just did everything I could do to feel, but then once I felt it, horrified me, because when I felt, it was this awful feeling of how much I hated who I was and how far I was from that girl that I was growing up to be, and how my whole life people told me you're gonna do so many things with your life, you're so amazing. Like, I was so young and so involved in church and all these different things, and then there I was sitting as a junior in high school, and I was like, God's forsaken me, I'm gone. I've sinned, He doesn't love me anymore for who I am right now. And I don't love me anymore, and I hate myself, so I think that He hates me, and I hate Him for hating me because He left me here in this pit in the middle of the ground, and I can't catch my feet on anything because I'm just falling. And I can't stop falling. And all I could think about was this little girl that I was. I was this 8-year-old little girl that was happy and had her parents and was loved and loved myself and was so confident in what I wanted and who I was. And then there I was sitting in this place of awfulness, and I could have never seen myself as a senior in high school being where I was, because by senior year I was just a fragment of myself, if not just the worst version of the person that I've ever been. I had people in my life who sincerely cared about me and knew that things were wrong, and I didn't let them care about me. And I didn't care about myself. And by October, I was sitting in a hospital room after the third time that I attempted to take my own life. And I was sitting there with my mom, and she was looking at me, and she was crying. And she was like, this is where you were born. And now I've taken you to this place that you were born, where you've tried to end your own life, and you're 17 years old. And I laughed. I was like, that's so funny. Why was I born? I don't have any purpose in this life. There's no part of me that means anything to anybody else, and I don't mean anything to myself, and all I want is to go away. I don't want to feel this pain anymore. I don't want to give other people this pain that I'm feeling. And it just hurt. It hurt to be in my own skin. I sat and I itched and I scratched because it felt uncomfortable to feel my skin against my bones because I existed and I didn't want to. And I didn't know where God was. And I yelled at Him and I said, help me, Dad, Father, help me. And there was just no response. And I was like, here I am. I've sinned enough that God won't even talk to me anymore. And it was just awful. At that point, it was clear that I wasn't getting the help that I needed. And I wasn't going to if I stayed in this place with my friends who encouraged me to do bad things and encouraged me to do whatever I want and to be happy in the moment, to do what made me happy then in that moment, but not what was making me better. So in November, I was checked into inpatient treatment or rehab in Malibu, California. I was taken out of dance and competition season, which was like my prime time, my show. It was my senior year. I was in the front line. I was gone the week of competition. They took me out. And I showed up there in this place with a whole bunch of other people that were broken like me, and I just tried to pretend that I didn't know, like I was better than all of them. I was like, I'm not messed up. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfect. Everything's perfect. And they're like, why don't? It became this awkward, horrible thing of me trying to still play this role of being a perfectionist. And I'm in this place where nobody's perfect and everyone's admitted that they're not perfect, or they're put there and they're put there to deal with their stuff and their baggage. It wasn't helping anything. And I was there for 2 weeks before I realized that I was lying to everyone. Still there, like I came there, and when I got there I told myself that I was going to be fully honest and fully vulnerable about what I was going through, and I got there and I was still pretending to be this person that I wasn't, and I was still hiding. I was still running from everyone. And I had these relationships with people, but we did this thing called hot seat. So like one person sat in the center of group, and then everyone else sat around them, and that person in the center turned to every single person, and every single person said what they believed about that person. And mine got to my roommate, and I had had this roommate for 3 weeks. I had been there for 3 weeks with the same roommate. And my roommate looked at me and said, "Leslie, I don't know anything about you." I said, "What?" And they said, "No, I don't really even know why you're here." So I'm sitting there with my roommate, and they're talking to me, and they're saying, "I don't know who you are, and I don't know anything about you, and I don't know where you're from, and I don't know what your life story is," and all of these things. And it came to this realization that I was in this place with everyone who had admitted to being broken, and I still wasn't admitting to it. And I had like this crazy moment of just like a realization of like how false I was living my life, and how I wasn't being authentic to myself, but I also didn't know who I was anymore. And I had lost the person that I really wanted to be in this crazy world, one of pretending to be so many other people, that I didn't even know what I truly wanted anymore. And then started my work. Then I started really taking that experience of being in treatment and really using it, and like trying to push it to the fullest of its abilities, and becoming friends with all of my therapists, and having one-on-ones every day, and like really talking in group and trying to be vocal about who I was. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I sat there and I had to admit to it, and I had to admit that this is what I did, this is what I'm dealing with, and I'm not perfect. And nobody else is perfect, but I'm really not perfect. And I really have a lot that's going on. And it's okay that I'm broken. And it's okay that it's hard. And being in treatment was actually one of the first times that I finally talked to God again. I was sitting there one day, and it was before I had really started putting in the work and started using treatment to the fullest of my abilities. And I was walking around and I was saying like, "Oh, I hate myself. I don't want to be here. I want to be doing something else," all of these things. And the CA came up to me, and the CA said, "Leslie, but don't you believe in God?" He said, "I thought that you were a Christian." And I said, "Well, yeah, but God's left me. God doesn't love me anymore. I'm alone without him." And he said, "That's never how it works. God never leaves you." He said, "God came for the broken. God came for the people that don't have their stuff together." I was like, "Well, yeah, I know, everyone says that, but is it really true?" He said, "Yeah." We sat there and we had this like hour-and-a-half conversation in the outside area of this facility, and I realized that I was pushing God away. God had never pushed me away. He had never closed the door to talking to him. He had never told me that I wasn't enough. He was there the whole time, and I had left him. I was so embarrassed about what I was doing. I was so embarrassed about what I was going through, and embarrassed that I wasn't this perfect child of his, and that I wasn't being this like outward going Christian and all of these things, that I had forsaken him. And I had put him in the closet and said, "I don't want to talk to you." And then I went to bed that night and I had this crazy dream. And he just started talking to me again. And we just started having conversation again. And it was crazy. And I was like, well, there he is. He's still there. And so I all of a sudden started feeling love, like unconditional love from this being. Unconditional love that I didn't have for myself, and that I didn't believe I deserved. And it was just really crazy. And I remember one night we had this crazy group and I had had a really hard night, and I was sitting there, and I had had a freak out or a panic attack, and I was laying there, and I couldn't really breathe very well, and everyone looked at me, and they were just like, just talk, just say what you're feeling. And I was like, I want to live. And I'm so scared because I've never wanted to live before. In the last 3 years of my existence, I haven't planned. I haven't planned accordingly to like what that means for me. I haven't been doing school very well, so now how am I going to go to college? Because now I want to go to college, and I want to have this life ahead of me. And that was terrifying. That was so scary. And it's funny because most people are afraid of is dying, and I was so accustomed to that it wasn't scary anymore. I had lost the feeling of fear with death, and it had become almost like a blanket. And now I was in this new place where I wanted to live, and I wanted to do something with my life, and it was horrifying and craziness. And at the end of that 45-day experience of me being there, I walked out with the realization that I was going to do something with this, that my life hadn't just been this pile of garbage that had happened to me and been given to me, but it was given to me for a reason, and God wanted me to do something with it, and I didn't know what, but I just wanted to keep figuring it out. I left treatment and I wasn't 100% fixed. I wasn't perfect then and had everything figured out. I wasn't happy, like crazy going back, but I was real. And the facade and the veneer that covered me, that was like this fake plastic, like trying to be Barbie-esque thing that I put on myself and lived in all of the time, just was gone. So I left with this overwhelming feeling of that I now had this life that I had to figure out, but I was excited to figure it out. And I was this real person, finally. And I got back and I just sit in front of my entire dance team and basically just say, yeah, this happened. And I went, and it was really good, and maybe even the best experience of my life, and I needed it so badly, and I didn't know that I needed it until I got there. And after that, I had all of these girls on my team that kept texting me and kept coming up to me and like, Leslie, I deal with the same thing. I have, like, this is going on in my life. This is happening with my parents. This is happening with my little sister. This is happening with me. And I realized that my community was like, everybody had this mask. It wasn't just me. It was everyone was so ashamed of it and so fearful, but everyone was going through it. And a lot of you deal with it, but don't take responsibility for it. And I'm taking responsibility for my actions and what I did, and I want to get better, and I want to change, and I want to grow as a person, and I never want to stop growing. And when I came back, I lost a lot of friendships. I lost a lot of people in my life that weren't healthy for me. My best friend didn't talk to me for 2 months when I got back, and then our first conversation was, maybe she's not my best friend anymore. Because I changed a lot, and I was a very different person. And I came back, and I didn't want to be excited all the time, because if I wasn't excited, then I didn't want to be excited. I wanted to be authentically excited, and I wanted to authentically feel all of my emotions and authentically be who I was and figure out who I was trying to be. But I really think that now in my future this will be a big thing for me, to share with other people and to get to talk to other people and love other people through the pain that I felt and through how alone I felt, to have other people not ever feel as alone as I did. And so then I tried out for the GCU dance team, and I made it, which I didn't expect. And it kind of has led to this new crazy life where I'm now in college in Phoenix, Arizona, which is very different from Portland. It's really hot here, and I'm studying behavioral health science, which is almost like a more exact version of clinical psychology, because I want to be a therapist. And I'm just really excited. And although all of that stuff was awful, I really needed to go through it, and I still go through it. That didn't fix me. I'm not fixed. Everyone's broken. We're all broken without God. And I know that I'm broken, and I know that there's still things that are really hard for me, and still things that push me and pull me, and I struggle, and I still think things, and I'm like, I don't want to think that, but I know a lot more how to deal with it now. And a lot of people see treatment or rehab as something to be ashamed about and embarrassed, like, oh, I went to rehab, and get really nervous about it and not want to tell anyone. But it was the best experience of my life. And it started this relationship between myself to stop hating myself and start understanding myself and understanding why and understanding the different things and why other people start feeling this way, and to get to talk with them and be with them and just love on other people because I'm so loved. So if I could talk to myself as a freshman or talk to myself as a 7th grader who was struggling with everything that I was struggling with, I would just say patience. First off, patience with the process, because it's not easy and it takes a lot of time and there's a lot of things, and I still am at this point where I have to remind myself to be patient with my progress, because when things still come up, it's really easy for me to jump back to, well, this is still a problem. Like, why is this still a problem? Why am I still struggling with this? It's so annoying. And to stick up for yourself. I let a lot of relationships walk all over me, and I let a lot of people tell me who I was, and I believed them. And I did a really big injustice to myself when I did that, because I let other people's things that they were uncomfortable with and their labels that maybe they were putting on themselves, I let them put it on me, and when they put it on me, then I put it on myself and lived in that, and that wasn't true, and that wasn't my truth. So don't accept anybody else's truth for who you are. Only accept your truth, and the truth of God, because He knows who you really are, and He loves you unconditionally, and He created you, and the person that created you surely knows who you are and surely loves you for the human being that you really are. I just dwell in Him and dwell in that somebody loves you unconditionally, and that there's always someone who loves you. And even when you don't, or feel like you can't love yourself, so feel like nobody else loves you or you don't deserve love from anybody else, you always have it from God, and He's always there, and He's always your person to talk to. He's always there, and just like in a constant, I'm now just in this constant talk with Him, this constant dialogue of like, well, this just happened and I'm kind of stressed out about it, but now I always have someone to talk to, which is really nice. And just remembering that and reaching out to your friends. Don't struggle alone, because you don't have to go through it alone. And that was a really big thing that I believed, was that I had to deal with it by myself, because I didn't think that anybody else dealt with it. There were so many more people that deal with what you deal with. And tapping into those people makes it a lot easier to go through the pain that you go through. So yeah, even though life may never be easy, and mine does continue to be really hard, it's new, and it's okay to be nervous and it's okay to be scared. Just enjoy the experience and be patient with yourself. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Unfortunately, not all stories end exactly like mine, but Girl Above is really dedicated to helping people who struggle in all different ways of life, with eating disorders, with depression and anxiety, with feeling the isolation, and they have lots of resources for parents and for teens and people just like you. So go donate to Girl Above and check out their website. They have a lot of resources to help everyone out, and it's just great. They're at girlabove.com.